And I'd like to begin by letting everybody know my name is Steve Lodge. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Instructional Services for the Saline Area Schools and a member of the Saline Area Schools Sex Education Advisory Council. I've worked in the district for 20 years now as a teacher, a building principal, and as assistant superintendent, and I'm really proud of the work that our students, our staff, our teachers, our administrators, and our community members, all of you who are participating tonight, have done over the years to make our school district an outstanding place to get a top-notch education for our kids. For most of you who have been following social media, the proposed changes in the sex education curriculum in the district have been received with strong emotions on both sides of the aisle. So we're here today to have some honest dialogue, respectful conversation, and debate about these proposed changes. The Saline Area Schools Sex Education Advisory Council has had excellent conversation and debate about the topics that we are going to be talking about tonight. Over the last several years, this council has wrestled with the information that we're going to present tonight. There are still countering points of views that have been expressed on our advisory council, and that's perfectly okay. But it's very clear that the advisory council wants what's best for all of our students. That's the goal that we have been all working towards. This evening, we want to hear from all of you, the questions that you have and the comments you would like to make. With that said, I'd like to introduce our Saline Area Schools Sex Education Advisory Council. And when I call your name, if you could stand, please. Deb Smith, first grade teacher at Harvest. And then we have Michelle Livingston, nursing and healthcare. Natalie Freeman, health teacher at Saline High School. Ann Gillingham, occupational therapist, healthcare. David Raft, high school principal. Peter Ruffner, pastor of Saline Community Church. Jack Warner, high school student. Dave Fiss, Saline middle school science teacher. And myself. One issue that has developed in our council is attrition, and we need to update the council. We've had a number of parents over the course of the last several months who are serving on the Sex Education Advisory Council, unable to fulfill the rest of the 3-year term. Thus, we're seeking more participants, and we'd like to invite all of you who obviously care deeply about these issues to consider applying. Thus, we plan on using this evening as an opportunity to encourage you to do the following. First, comment, provide feedback, and listen to what others have to say about proposed changes to the sex education curriculum. Obviously, we have many people in the community who care a great deal about this topic, and we need your voice to be heard. Consider filling out an application to join the Sex Education Advisory Council. We'll be accepting applications over the course of the next couple weeks through on May 31st. Applications are on the table in the back there with other curriculum resources. The applications can be left here at the comment table with Betty, who's back there. If you prefer, though, you could fill one out later tonight, and you can be sending it in later for review. Superintendent Braden will be reviewing the applications and will help select parents by June 2nd. The entire council will help review all of the feedback from these hearings in mid-June, and we'd love for you to consider being part of the council. Other introductions tonight. Teresa Stager, our high school assistant principal. She's going to help record. She'll be recording tonight. Betty Rosenleacher in the back here, she's our Harvest Elementary School principal. She, if you can submit comment cards to her, she will also be timing, which means if you'd like to speak, and I'll be grabbing the cards and then calling your name, and then you can go ahead and speak. And you'll have up to 2 minutes to do that. And she has a yellow card for warning you that there's 30 seconds left, and a red card when time is up. So that's how we'll be able to monitor that time for everyone. Further, we have Ricky Bicknell, Community Outreach Coordinator for Planned Parenthood. We have Mary Bino, Regional School Health Coordinator, supporting Washdown and Livingston County. We also have a number of Board of Education members. I think I have them all listed here. Paul's here, Paul Heineck, Dennis Valente, Michael McVeigh, and Tim Austin. Is there anybody else that I'm missing? And Jacob from SCTN TV, and Tran from the Sling Post. With that said, I'd like to go over the detailed format of the evening, the hearing, also a discussion. Here's the details. We'll have a discussion with the public about proposed changes in the delivery of the sex education curriculum at Saline High School. The first change would involve having the current health curriculum be delivered in part through a program provided by Planned Parenthood in the way of peer-to-peer teaching, training high school age students teaching other SHS students about sex education in our health classes. Peer-to-peer presenters go through 50 hours of diverse training in order to be able to deliver the curriculum, and this would equate to 2 to 3 lessons in each health class. The second change would involve adding a component to the sex education curriculum that specifically includes information regarding sexual health terminology as it applies to all individuals, including LGBTQ youth, as well as current mental, emotional, social, and sexual health statistics in regards to sexual minority youth. We will also discuss adding a combination of peer-to-peer presentations focusing on consent, sexual assault, and healthy relationships to the Senior Strategies class, senior-only elective course at Sling High School. On a side note, there are a number of curriculum resources that are placed at the table on the side back there for you to review if you choose. And you can do that at any time tonight, and these resources will also be available at the next hearing on May 30th. So the hearing tonight goes from 6 to 7:30. We'll be doing our best to make sure we're getting through as many questions as possible. And any leftover questions we can be addressing at the future hearing. Or you also are all going to be able to provide feedback so your voice is heard on an electronic survey that will be opened immediately after the discussion tonight. And so the format, points to consider for this discussion. A, be respectful, be a good listener, debate issues and organizations and not individual people. And remember, it's a discussion with no predetermined action. So tonight we provide an opportunity for the public to ask questions and make comments. Participants, many of you have already done this, but you fill out yellow cards in the back and give them to Betty. And then when you are called, you will, if you'd like your card back to ask a question, you may do so, or we can just bring you a microphone, you can talk from your seat, or if you'd like to come up to this lectern area, you may do that as well. All participants will have an opportunity to submit feedback and additional comments to the Sex Education Advisory Council by way of an electronic survey. The survey link is on your agenda. And so even if you're planning not to comment or ask a question tonight, or if we're running out of time, this is a great way for you to submit feedback so it can be reviewed by the entire council. The survey is going to be open until this Thursday evening at 9 p.m. And the link is on the agenda. And if anybody doesn't have that agenda, we'll make sure that you have the link. A member of the Sex Education Advisory Council, Planned Parenthood, Public Health, or so forth, will respond to questions if the answers are known. If not, questions will be researched and responded to at the second hearing on May 30th. The Sex Education Advisory Council will review the feedback from the public after the May 15th hearing. We'll then determine next steps for the second hearing on May 30th. Feedback will be gathered from the May 30th hearing, and next steps will be determined by the council. There will be no proposal sent to the Board of Education as we are wanting to review the feedback and curriculum further. Once we have more members selected as Sex Education Advisory Council, council will meet again in mid-June to discuss feedback from the community, and next steps will be determined. Next, I would like to give a program review about the Sling Sex Education Program. And this report primarily covers data from the previous few years, and that report is listed in the back. It can be found on the table if you want to take a look at it later, tonight, or next time. Here are some summary points of this report that have helped guide discussion on the Sex Education Advisory Council over the past several years to propose some of the changes being suggested at tonight's discussion. First, Sling Area Schools administers a Michigan Department of Education survey to both 9th and 11th graders every 2 years. This survey is called the Michigan Profile for Healthy Youth, or MyFi, and we administered this survey in 2013-14 and again in 2015-16. We saw a slight uptick in the number of 9th graders who took the survey, reporting that they had had sex from 2013-14 to 2015-16, and that refers to the question is sexual intercourse. But this was still 3 percentage points lower than the county average. We saw a slight decrease in the number of 11th graders who took the survey, reporting that they had had sex from 2013-14 to 2015-16, and Sling was a couple percentage points below the county average as well. But we are still hovering at the 30% mark of students reporting that they've had sexual intercourse. We're an abstinence-based program, and we want to do better than that. We've been implementing the approved Michigan model of health curriculum at all levels in the Saline area schools, and we believe it is reasonably effective. Yet observation throughout health classes and data supported by health organizations demonstrates that a peer-to-peer model can lead to greater engagement of students in the classroom regarding abstinence-based decisions about sex. Another topic the report addresses is that of LGBTQ youth. This stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and questioning youth. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention research shows that stresses experienced by LGBT youth have put them at greater risk for depression, substance abuse, and sexual behaviors. We also administered a parent survey that was sent out to all district emails in 2014 and 15 that asked the following question regarding sexual orientation and identity. It asked, at what grade should this be first taught? Teaches that all students deserve to be treated with respect, and that some students self-identify or are perceived to be gay, lesbian, or bisexual. 88.4% of the respondents said that this should be taught at some point in a student's time in Saline area schools. 11.6% of respondents said that it should not be taught at all in the schools. Now, it's important to note that conducting surveys and obtaining reliable data is never an exact science. There are many, many factors involved, including confidence intervals, margins of error, that always need to be considered. The number of students taking the survey isn't the same from year to year. The first time we conducted the MyFi survey in 2013-14, we distributed it to all students in our classes, and most of our students took it. Some chose not to, and some chose to only give certain answers to certain questions. In 2015-16, when we gave the survey, we randomly distributed the survey and had fewer participants, but still a good percentage. The parent survey we just spoke about from 2014 and 15 had some questions that had more than one part to them. This means a parent might agree with part of the question and not agree with the other part, and be somewhat unclear on how to answer the question. With that said, we believe it's important to continue surveying students and parents to the best of our ability to better understand how our sex education curriculum is supporting our students and parents. We will continue to work on gathering data in a reliable manner, and we will look to administer the MyFi survey to our 9th and 11th grade students in the 2017-18 school year. And we will conduct another parent survey in the not too distant future. With that said, I want to introduce Ricky and Natalie, who are going to be talking about the proposed changes in the curriculum. And we're going to
Good evening. Thank you for coming tonight. It shows how much you all truly care about the youth that we have in this specific topic. So the first change is actually not to the curriculum per se, but actually who is delivering the curriculum. Over the years, I've taught at Saline for 11 years, and I've seen through observation that when you get a group of teens who are feeling comfortable with each other and they start a dialogue, and I am merely the facilitator in the room, they are really great at guiding themselves through the content to come to the end where they know the risks and the possible outcomes of contraceptives, of all topics that are sex ed related. So this first change is who is delivering just the one lesson on contraceptives. All other lessons in that unit are all going in the sex ed unit are still going to be the high school health teacher in that classroom. So that's the only first change. The second change is to actually a lesson that we're proposing to put into the mental, emotional, and social health unit. And it's regarding LGBTQ youth. And I will let Ricky cover that question because it's the peer-to-peer program again that will come in for that lesson.
All right, good evening everyone. Thank you for coming and thank you for a strong turnout. It means a lot to us, no matter where you fall on the spectrum of support or not even supporting this work, that you're passionate enough to show up. We know that that means a lot not only to us, but to the committee and to the students who this will mostly affect. The LGBT proposal presentation that we have that we're going to be here talking about tonight was created about 2 years ago in response to a need that we saw across the county, hearing from teachers and from students that this was a topic that we felt needed to be addressed, both in the classroom and maybe outside of the classroom through community support. I would like to remind people that are recording right now with your phones and other cameras, if you could please put that away. We are having this recording live on public television, and you don't have the media consent to be recording me right now. The LGBT
I have
curriculum.
consent right here, if you need it.
No, you don't.
I
The
do. State
LGBT
law says I
curriculum
have consent.
that we are proposing is a 1-hour curriculum that based mostly on terminology relating to what is LGBT in terms of the letters, what are some health disparities that are faced by LGBT students. We know that they are more likely to experience drug and alcohol abuse, sexual and emotional abuse, homelessness. All of those things are very important to us, so we address that in an interactive kind of way. Those materials should be available in the back. Also, they're available online. The other presentation we have created and proposed is around consent and healthy relationships. That is a presentation that also came from the community need around the Ann Arbor, Dexter, and Ypsilanti area. We facilitated that presentation a few times now, and it focuses not only on what is legal consent, but also what is social consent, how do healthy relationships look versus unhealthy relationships, and it really gets people talking about their own values relating to how they were raised, things that are important to them. I also want to introduce some of the peer educators that are here. If you guys could stand up tonight. We've got 22 amazing young people in our program. A handful of them are here tonight as representatives both of the work they do with Planned Parenthood and as young people who live in this community. We have people from Ann Arbor Public Schools, from Green Hills School, from Washington International. Did I leave anything out? And Milan as well. We have a strong showing of Milan in our group. So if questions come up tonight that particularly relate to their experience as being teachers in the classroom, I'll be happy to have some of them speak to that as well. And then lastly, I would say that I approached this work with 14 years of experience. Actually, I got started when I was a freshman in high school and doing it as a volunteer in terms of educating, thanks guys, educating my peers about sexual health topics that are important to me, that I saw in my community of Battle Creek, which is where I grew up. Continued volunteering through college and have been doing this job as a staff person now for 6 years. So I also have a lot of experience working with different districts with sexual health related topics. Is there anything else you want to
Yeah, I do want to add one more thing too. So the second part of the change, part of the change is going to be for the senior strategies class. It's the class that I teach that prepares students for the transition from high school to college. And there's so many statistics that show that the student dropout rate throughout college is really high, for whatever variable that might be. But one statistic that I feel like I can help to prevent is the alarming number of sexual assault that happens on college campuses. And I really feel like this is a topic that needs to be addressed, and I feel like because freshman year is so far away from senior year of high school, and they're onto the path of being on their own, freedom, with maybe possibly living on their own or in the dorms. This is a topic that needs to be discussed because something that needs to change, this trend of onward, upward sexual assault happening on campuses. And so that's the other reason why I wanted the peer-to-peers to come in as well, because I feel like coming from another peer, it's better received than it would be coming from, oh, Mrs. Freeman, it's been forever since you were in college, you don't know what you're talking about. So that was a lot of the rationale behind having the peers come in to talk about this really important topic, because that statistic just breaks my heart, and I would love to do anything I can to help prevent that from happening. So thank you. If we have any questions or anything like that?
The last thing I would say is in support of a peer-to-peer kind of model, this is not something that is new to Saline High School or to the other districts in the community. We use this kind of model to talk about a variety of very sensitive personal topics, whether it's a depression support group that does peer-to-peer support, or just general issues that go on with relating to be a teenager. Obviously, we can all relate to how hard that can be sometimes. And with sexual health, it's no different, that this is a topic that we would love for every parent to feel supported and educated on this stuff, to do it at home in a way that they feel is effective and that meets their sets of values. We know that that's not the case for every student, that they don't have that luxury of a parent who can be open and honest with them about these different topics. That's why we teach that in the schools. We're not trying to impose any values. What we do is really around education and knowledge and empowering young people by giving them information to hope that they then go and make healthy choices in their own lives too. All right.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and spend the rest of the time getting to people's questions. So a couple options. If you'd like to, if you have something prepared or you just prefer to be at the lectern up here, there's a microphone here. And if you'd rather, we can just bring the microphone closer to you and you can use the portable mic. So let's start with Kathy Dabrowski. You want to come up or do you want to?
I guess I could, because I have
You want me to get him to council?
Good evening. My name is Kathy Dobrowolski, and I'm parent of a former Saline High School student. Dr. Miriam Grossman, author of Unprotected and You're Teaching My Kids What, this book, is in the forefront of studies of young people, sexuality, and so-called comprehensive sex ed. She writes, the new sex ed curriculum makes it a priority to shape students' thinking rather than teach them the science of sexual and reproductive health. It is sacrificing their health for an ideological-driven curriculum. Her conclusion is that comprehensive sex ed is proven to be no more effective and may be more harmful than the current curriculum. Other studies back this up as well. One concern with allowing Planned Parenthood to be a part of Saline's sex ed curriculum is that they will do a disservice to our children by encouraging promiscuity under the false belief that what they are doing is safe. From Planned Parenthood's own website, there's nothing bad or unhealthy about having a big number of sexual partners. Promiscuity is a word that's used to shame people. But research shows us the risk of infection and disease increases the more sexual partners a person has. Why would we want Planned Parenthood encouraging this type of behavior in our kids? It appears that the comprehensive sex ed offered by Planned Parenthood is sex with no strings attached. Teens are told they can have sex wherever, whenever, and with whomever, and anything goes, as long as it's consensual and contracepted. Again, Planned Parenthood's version of sex ed is not about safe sexual health, it's a social movement. Abstinence is a speed bump on the road to Planned Parenthood's larger condom-driven education plan. No mention of health risks that go along with some of the activities they suggest, such as outer course. Planned Parenthood's sex ed approach has no mention of emotional and psychological fallout of this kind of sexual activity, which our teens need to be educated as well. So I'm just saying why we should not be encouraging Planned Parenthood, and I'm asking the committee if they could please look at the links, the material, and everything I've provided, and not to bring Planned Parenthood into the Saline sex ed curriculum.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Paul? Okay, we're doing our best to keep everything to 2 minutes, just because we are trying to do our best to get to every single person tonight.
Good evening. My name is Paul Dobrowolski, Saline, Michigan. Planned Parenthood is Washtenaw County's largest provider of abortions. What does that have to do with Planned Parenthood sex ed program? Money. The Planned Parenthood business model is simple. It makes perfect business sense. This organization first opens up a facility that dispenses contraception and either provides or refers for abortion. Then, once set up in a community, they continuously, year after year, seek out schools in the area where they can teach their comprehensive sex ed that normalizes teen sexual activity, focusing on how pleasurable it is and how to engage in sex safely. I have a reference here. They then build relationships with students and promote their facilities as places where kids can get birth control and contraceptives. Once students have been conditioned to sex and are used to the Planned Parenthood brand name, they offer the birth control that they were taught that they need to have safe sex. The Planned Parenthood facilities will also offer STIs, STD testing to make them feel that they're totally safe. But according to PP's own statistics from the Alan Guttmacher Institute, PP knows that 54% of all women who have had an abortion are seeking their abortion because of a failure of their contraception. And I have a reference for that. In the UK, one report shows 2/3 of abortions were done after contraceptive failure. PP relies on imperfect use of their main contraceptive methods they promote.
30 seconds.
Namely condoms and the pill. After failure of the contraceptive method, Planned Parenthood will be in your students' visibility to offer abortions at the price of about $500 each. That's a cool $1.5 million for the 3,000 abortions committed each year in the Ann Arbor abortion facility. Yes, that's abortion has the highest in-clinic profit margin of any service offered at every Planned Parenthood abortion facility.
Okay, that's time.
I just asked the committee to please do not bring Planned Parenthood into our sex ed education of our Saline schools.
Thank
Saline
you.
kids.
Thank you. Dominic? Bruno, there.
Steve, can we clear up one thing, that Planned Parenthood did not approach Saline District about adopting this proposed change to the curriculum? It was actually the other way around. And actually, I'd like to point out that Paul is pretty well known to law enforcement in Ann Arbor, and it has been, had the police called on him several times for harassing people at our clinic.
Right. We need to have a respectful conversation, agreed. Here we go. Correct, we need to have a respectful conversation. Okay, Don, go ahead.
Sorry if it comes after me, I had to just move the mic up. I'll try to remember to move it down. I wanted to just briefly highlight a concern I have with the LGBTQ curriculum. In that, from what I've seen in the media right now, certainly there is a need to protect these youth from bullying, but I'm wondering if the committee has a plan for how to protect youth that might disagree with this lifestyle from bullying as well. And I think it takes a lot of just what I've heard in talking with various students in the district and seen in the last number of years, there's a cultural shift that is very much widely spread. So please consider how to protect those that share different views. Thank you.
Thank you, Dominic. Jennifer, Judge Hensel.
Okay, sure, yeah. These are actually questions I have, and I think that they will hopefully help with some of the issues that a lot of people here in the room are feeling, and so these are questions directly for the curriculum. I think that we know that there are, or maybe perhaps some people in the room don't know that there are actually current Michigan state laws against discussing abortion in the classroom, and it would be helpful to know what those are, because I think a lot of what people here in the room are upset about is that issue, and understandably so, and so knowing what we are and aren't allowed to talk about, regardless of who's delivering the curriculum, would be very helpful. Also, we are among the last, I believe, in the county to adopt this curriculum. It's already in place in Dexter and Ann Arbor and other schools, so hearing how that has gone, if there are statistics, would be super helpful. And then finally, are there any other organizations that offer the curriculum aside from Planned Parenthood? Because I think we can tell from a lot of the stickers in the room that it is this organization that we are upset about, potentially, and not necessarily the curriculum changes. So if there are alternatives that have been explored, it would be nice to know.
That is a good question about alternatives being explored. One thing we do want to point out with the survey we're going to ask people to fill in tonight is questions about Planned Parenthood involvement, Saline Area Schools curriculum, and we will give you the opportunity to separate those things, because I think that was a point you wanted to make about that. Okay. Would you address some of those now?
So to your first question about abortion in the schools, strict Michigan state law, I am not, or health teachers are not allowed to promote, discuss, should the issue or question arise in the classroom about abortion. I simply state, I'm sorry, I can't discuss that topic in the classroom, that's not my place.
We would handle that the same.
And it's the same, so that's the law, and I cannot vary from the law at all. The second question, does that answer your question about?
Yeah, and would that change with the new
Not at all.
curriculum, or that is still
Not,
the
no
case?
change in that at all, and that
You're not
applies to the
creating a
peer
pipeline
educators.
for abortions with this curriculum?
Absolutely,
Thank
there's
you.
no
Thank you
discussion
for
about or
clarifying.
promotion of or option of abortion in this curriculum. In fact, I do want to clear up, the curriculum in and of itself is already the Saline High School curriculum. There is zero curriculum changes in terms of the sex ed unit itself that is proposed to be changed. I'm increasing what I would like to have done in the senior strategies classroom because I feel like freshman year is a long way away from freshman year of college. And then the LGBTQ unit is actually in the mental, emotional, social health because it really, the topics don't align with the sex ed curriculum in that regard. Okay, so in terms of the next one.
Yeah, so your question about the experience of the other districts that we teach in. So you're right, we do have a strong presence in Ann Arbor Public Schools, in Dexter Public Schools, Ypsilanti Public Schools, Milan Public Schools, Green Hills, which is a private school, and then Washtenaw International, which is actually a consortium school of a bunch of really smart kids from all across the county who want to take international baccalaureate curriculum. We've got a handful of them here. From my personal experience, having grown up in a community very similar to Saline in Battle Creek, I went through this process while I was in high school of getting Planned Parenthood approved. So I can only speak from my personal experience as a young person back then. It was difficult, but something that I remain to be very committed to today. And I would say that in my 6 years officially as staff in this role, overseeing the peer education program and doing our work in Washtenaw County, we've had no negative feedback as far as I can tell from the work that we deliver. And in fact, in every district that we do have a presence, they increasingly want us to come in more and more in terms of the topic areas that we address. And it's important to say too that, like Natalie said, we're not necessarily changing any pieces of the curriculum that are already adopted as far as talking about different topics relating to birth control and condoms and other contraceptives, as well as abstinence, which is a very big part of what we talk about as well. Do any of you want to specifically address what it's been like being a peer ed at your school? Yeah.
We're just the Ann Arbor Public Schools.
Yeah, or community in general. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Leah. I'm a junior at Community High School in Ann Arbor. This is my second year being a peer educator. Ann Arbor is a very liberal place, as you guys know. But I still find my classmates having lots of questions surrounding abstinence. What should I do? What do my parents want me to do? What does my partner want me to do? Surrounding STIs, there are lots of misconceptions surrounding STIs, especially HIV, which is increasing in prevalence in young people. And so I think what's really important about being a peer educator is that you aren't going to your teacher or your parents, people that you might not necessarily be comfortable talking to about sexual health. I mean, you guys remember being 16 and, who wants to ask their parents, oh, is this an okay thing to do? Where do I buy condoms? When do I have sex? Is this sexual assault? And so I think coming to someone who you are comfortable with, someone who's already a presence in your school, who has been educated, we do 40 hours of training every year. We have people come in from Catholic Social Services, LGBTQ centers, health centers from all over the state coming in. And so I think it's really important to get a perspective from someone who is going through the same things, but who also comes from a place of education and wanting to empower students, rather than telling them what to do and what not to do, giving them all of the options and letting them decide.
Thank you. We'll also limit the questions, or the answers to the questions. We'll try to 2 minutes too. We're trying to get through obviously as many of the cards as we can. Okay, Kristen Driver.
My understanding right now is that the state is currently updating their health education standards. So I was curious if the state had plans to adopt the national standards, as they appear to be very effective in the states that have already adopted them. So that was my one question for the state. My other question, or kind of a comment slash question, we know a lot of people choose Saline schools because of our overall curriculum, that we're very strong in educating our students, and that a lot of people try and get into our schools for that reason. For me, part of a good curriculum is the health curriculum. So my question is, how do the current curriculum meet those national standards already, or what are the plans to make sure that they meet those? And I think my other questions are already answered from
Okay,
other.
then I'll take the cards
Oh.
back. I'll make sure we get these. Okay, Mary, you want to address that? The National Park?
So right, currently, the Michigan Department of Education is updating the standards in health education. And to my knowledge, after speaking with Lori Beckhover and also Mary Teachout at MDE, there is no plan to adopt the national sexuality education standards. More than likely in terms of health education itself, however, they're looking at what the SHAPE organization uses in regards to comprehensive health education, which are two very distinct, different topics in regard to health education standards and the national sexuality education standards. And also, just to reiterate what Ricky and Natalie had said, teachers, when they go to training to teach this content, we spend an enormous amount of time on the law and legislation. And over and over and over again, we refer to A to K and what can and cannot be taught. And first and foremost, we do highlight those prohibited areas, which includes not discussing abortion. So kudos to Saline area schools and your advisory council. That's exactly what you do, is follow the legislation.
Okay, thank you. Ray, do you want to come up, or?
I read from data analysis published in April 2017 by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC. Dr. Michelle Cretella, resident of the American College of Pediatricians, states, the CDC reports that men who have sex with men make up only 2% of the population, but homosexual and bisexual men aged 13 to 24 account for 92% of new HIV cases. She states, this is shocking. An HIV epidemic is raging among young homosexual men, and no one knows about it. Least of all, those most at risk, the LGBT youth. She goes on to say, these statistics are proof that comprehensive sex education aimed at promoting condoms among youth has not worked. Dr. Cretella says, even when used perfectly, condoms and lubricants cannot make anal sex safe, and that our children deserve to know the truth. Their health and very lives depend on it. She finishes by saying, too often, politically correct teachers and sex ed classes downplay the risks of homosexuality. Will Planned Parenthood teach our children the facts that they have the right to know? I don't think so. Will the Saline schools teach the risks of such behaviors to our youth? I hope so.
30 seconds.
Chastity is the best solution for our young people. I hope that the council has the courage to protect our children from Planned Parenthood, and that it will promote the safest type of sex, that between two adults in a stable, one man, one woman marriage. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Tamara Moore.
So Jen had already asked this question about the curriculum and the updates, but I guess the question is, how do they impact the general curriculum versus the high school elective? And when is that introduced, that elective? What grades? Is that only senior or is that earlier?
Only senior class, the elective class, yeah, it's only senior
Only
class.
seniors, okay. And this next one is just a comment. Obviously, there's a lot of strong feelings in this room. People have an opinion one way or the other, and I would agree, I have one too. But what I would say is if that's against your belief, if you don't want your kids to participate in this, then don't have them participate in this. They can always opt out. And that starts in 4th grade if all of you are parents. You've given that option from the 4th grade on for your kids to opt out. If you want them to, then go for it. But please do not prevent my child from learning about this and being able to help support their LGBTQ friends.
Council members, I'm a 2010 graduate of Saline High School. I stand before you today to express my strong opposition to the proposed changes to the sex education curriculum at Saline High School. Planned Parenthood, from its very founding up until today, is an organization built on controversy, lies, deceit, and racism. Its founder, Margaret Sanger, was one of the leaders of the eugenics movement in America and once stated, quote, "We do not want word to get out that we want to exterminate the Negro population." Council members, let those words sink in and consider whether an organization that to this day gives out an annual Margaret Sanger Award should be teaching the children of the school district, or any children for that matter. Additionally, in the area of sex education, Planned Parenthood is far from neutral. As a major provider of contraception, and when that fails, abortion, Planned Parenthood knows that it will profit from encouraging risky sexual behavior among teens, as the graphic and erotic nature of the peer-to-peer content is clearly designed to do. It is beyond disgusting that Planned Parenthood exploits vulnerable children and their changing hormones to benefit its own bottom line. Another highly concerning aspect of the proposed new curriculum is the section including LGBTQ issues. As outlined, the curriculum would seek to normalize sexual behavior that has been proven over and again to be detrimental to the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of youth. No amount of euphemisms, catchphrases, or slick presentations can turn something that is unhealthy into something that is healthy. So council members, I urge you, keep Planned Parenthood out of our schools and away from our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Sean Regan.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sean. My wife's a 2007 graduate of Saline High School, and we have a couple of young children, up and coming, not quite in the schools yet, but this is concerning to me. But I wanted to highlight just briefly, there's been some talk about, sort of the content being primarily knowledge-based and educational. And that may be true that the content of what's presented, I may not have a problem with at all. But I think between the lines, what I see is a group of young people getting 50 hours of education from the #1 abortion provider in America. I think we need to give our young people a little more credit that they could read between the lines and understand if Planned Parenthood is in favor of abortion to the extent, again, being the #1 provider. So let's say in 2014, they treated about 350,000 pregnant women. Okay, about 330,000 of those pregnant women had abortions. Okay, so about 18,000 of them, 20,000 had prenatal care. They planned to keep their child. So this is not an organization that is neutral in this area, and to think that won't come across to peer educators, that they won't then in turn become, the idea is they become a resource, just as the young woman said, a resource for their classmates, a sort of authority on the matter. That after all, they've had the training, right? So they become the authority.
30 seconds, John.
And just briefly, a quote, Planned Parenthood's annual report in 2014 from Dakota, who participated in the program. When I was in high school, my mom told me about the peer education program at my affiliate, and I've been involved ever since. My plan is to go to medical school to become an abortion provider. Being part of Planned Parenthood gives me the space to do this work. Okay, so I just want to make sure that that link between abortion, we've tried to push to the side. Okay, it's not talked about, it's not important to Planned Parenthood, we're not pushing that agenda.
Okay, that's
Making sure that it's at the center of what they're doing, and to think that they are neutral in that area is naive.
Thank you, John.
I'm Jeff Wolf, been in the community about 11 years. So I just have a question to people of the council. First of all, Planned Parenthood is a controversial organization. What other organizations or resources did the advisory council look at besides Planned Parenthood to perhaps make these changes in the curriculum? Can someone answer that? If any?
We looked, so through other, I network with, we're part of the Health Educators Learning Network, and from other health teachers in the Washtenaw County, they've only raved at this program. And so
What
no,
other organizations did you
There are
look
none.
at?
there are no other peer-to-peer programs in Washtenaw County that I'm aware
How about in the
of.
state?
In the state.
State of Michigan.
No.
How about starting our own?
To my knowledge, I am not aware of any other organization that provides a class like this or course like this. Of the districts that Ricky has mentioned, they have used it and they've gotten positive reviews and comments on it. And all of what they do too goes through the same procedure that you're running through here tonight, or the 2 public hearings, because all parents' voices need to be heard, and that's what the law states. And again, too, a parent may opt their child out of any part of the curriculum they so choose to do so.
Okay, thank you. Shamul, I might be saying that wrong.
Talk right there.
Thank you for my question. I know, I think so many of the questions have already been answered. I believe my question was, when was the last time that a change was made to the program? I'm very happy to hear these changes being proposed. It sounds like it's not much of a change, it's just an update to what's already there. I was just curious about the history of the program. When was the last time anything minor or major has been updated?
Virtually 2013-14, but
So major content-wise was in 2005 is when I very first started teaching here. There was a lot of change in hands. We want to make sure that what we were teaching was covered by, was approved by the committee. And since then, this is the first major change that has taken place. In 2013, we moved to the Michigan model, which is 0 change in content, just how it's delivered. And it allowed us to spend 2 weeks on this very, very important topic, starting with developing a relationship and friendship and the myths of what love and sex are, intimacy, understanding who a person actually is. So this goes much deeper rather than, it's not just, have safe sex, but it's more about the content of understanding what it all entails and that it's much more of an emotional process rather than just in action. So there's really no, since I've been here 11 years ago, this is the first major change that's taken place.
Brian Merlos.
I guess I'll stand right here if I've already got the microphone. Hi everyone, my name is Brian Merlos. I'm a graduate in 2007, graduate of the University of Michigan. I've had a number of life experiences since graduating from Saline and graduating from college. I worked for the Washtenaw Prisoner Reentry Initiative, later the Michigan Prisoner Reentry Program. It's a program helping men and women find housing, find jobs after being released from prison. I've worked for a state legislator up in Lansing as the Constituent Relations Director. And I'd like to start with my experience with the Planned Parenthood Peer Educators Program there. They had an opportunity to visit our office in Lansing. I had an opportunity to sit down with a number of peer educators for about half an hour, 45 minutes, discussing the program, discussing what they talked about. And I can confidently say that these are some of the most well-spoken, well-educated leaders in the community, folks that, that I feel confidently students will feel trusting to go to not judge, to listen, and to provide answers and resources when there are very real problems like those I heard coming out of the prisoner reentry program, where each person who came out of prisoner reentry received a very, very quick sexual health program, and I felt like that program did not give them all of the answers that they needed, answers that become a public health issue with HIV and AIDS, things that can be prevented when people have answers to those questions. I'd like to wrap up by saying that I was a high school youth group advisor for a local religious organization, and I was on the receiving end of a lot of those questions, and I didn't feel confident answering those questions because I didn't feel like I had the resources to answer them adequately. I do know that the students who receive this training will have the answers to those questions, and strongly encourage the council to implement this program.
Sarah McAllister. Sarah?
Actually, my question's been asked already once before, so I have a comment, actually. I'd like to know how many parents are in the room of Saline District kids? Great. And then how many people actually have kids that are in high school right now, here in Saline? Great. So I don't have kids in Saline High School yet, but I'm here because my kids will eventually go to Saline High School, and it's years down the road, but you got to start somewhere. And the curriculum that I am expecting to be is to be, you know, scientifically based and well researched and supported by laws and things like that. And so that's why I'm here to kind of stand up and support for that. And I just really appreciate all these students coming out too and being part of this. This is a great, you know, diverse group, and you guys have a lot of experience, and I'm just really proud of the work that you guys do. And I hope that, you know, it really takes you into public action in the future. Thanks.
Thank you. Sue Lee. Do you want your card back?
Good evening, everybody. A lot of my questions have already gotten answered, but I know the gentleman asked about if we look at any other agencies other than Planned Parenthood, and there was, out of New Jersey, they did a pilot program called the Teen Prevention Education Program, and New Jersey's initiative did not use Planned Parenthood. That program was also followed by, replicated in North Carolina. They as well did not use Planned Parenthood. Those are both peer-based groups. And out of those peer-based groups, what a statement that really resonated with me is that supporting evidence suggests that adolescents may be more likely to change their attitudes and behaviors if they believe the messenger, i.e. the peer educator, faces similar concerns and pressures. And that's kind of the highlight, the concerns and the pressures. That's where I have a problem with Planned Parenthood. They are going to be the ones mentoring these young individuals who are very talented. They're going to mentor them, they're going to mold them, they're going to give them information based on the Planned Parenthood motto, which I do not agree with. And I know you mentioned you can't talk about abortion in the class, it's against state law, but I kind of wonder if you can give them resources to come to that conclusion on their own. Sometimes you don't have to give them the answer up front, but you give them the resources to come to that conclusion on their own. So I also ask the board to please not bring Planned Parenthood into our school.
All right. So a couple people brought this issue up about training and resources. So I want to say a quick thing about the training that peer educators do go through. Like we said, it is around 50 hours. It all happens after school. We do it in about 6 weeks in November and December. So all of the young people come from a full day of school and then go through a couple hours of education on various different topics. Like was highlighted earlier, we do rely on a lot of different outside experts from the community, everyone from the HIV/AIDS Resource Center, to the Catholic Social Services, to the Safe House Center, which deals with sexual assault and domestic violence. So these young people are hearing directly from other area experts that may also have a presence in the school, places like the Corner Health Center or the Ozone House. The other point I want to bring up is about resources, because this program that I run through Planned Parenthood does not receive any funding from any of the districts that we work with. We provide all of this information and educational work for free. So I would encourage you to think about where these resources come from. They might support another kind of program, especially if we're looking at New Jersey, which has one of the most comprehensive state laws on the books with regard to sex ed. Where does that money come from? How do you bring the groups in? These are questions that need to be answered too. Lucas, do you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify something. Basically, Planned Parenthood's motto is care no matter what. And I wanted to clarify something specifically about what you said about how we're mentoring and molding these students. We're not here to, change anybody's values. Everybody has their own precepts, whether it's based in religion or otherwise. But what we're here to do is educate. We're not even a counseling program. We just provide them with information, objectively researched and well supported by facts. So that's all we're here to do.
Tom Frederick. I am a father of 6, 3 in the Saline School Districts, a teacher of 25 years, the science department chair at the high school, and a personal friend of Mr. Dobrowski over there, just because his character was impugned. I have a concern about what Mr. Bruno brought up about what about people of the opposite view, and how will we handle them? And over and again, you've said we'll be compassionate, but one of the people who is going to be mentoring the trainers lashed out against somebody because his view on the matter is different. And then 3 people later, the teens who are awesome people, and I really appreciate all the job that you're doing, all the work you're doing, they were sniggering and nodding their heads when Mr. Lipa was sharing and his son was sharing. If my kid is in a group and brings up an alternate view and they're sniggering or head nodding, and we're human beings. You did nothing wrong. You're human. You're normal. I do it too. It's going to come out. And I have a concern that we need to protect. We're a pluralistic society. We need to protect everyone. I also have concerns about Planned Parenthood. I have concerns about Planned Parenthood being a trustworthy partner for our students and our schools. I don't doubt the intentions of this committee is good. I know many of you personally. And I laud you for your efforts to provide the best education and knowledge for our children. However,
20 seconds.
Good intentions can have disastrous consequences. Over the last decade, Planned Parenthood has been investigated for many bad behaviors, including fraud, including failing to report statutory rape and abuse, including aiding and abetting sex trafficking in 7 abortion clinics across 5 states. In the past 2 years, Planned Parenthood has been recorded a dozen times consenting to illegal sales of aborted baby body parts. Repeatedly tonight, it's been demonstrated that Planned Parenthood is a business model that sexualizes children and then finally benefits from the consequences financially. Is that what we want for our children to learn?
I'm a mother of 3 Saline High School graduates. I have concerns about proposed peer-to-peer educators. In the report that was stated before, the measurement report, it was stated that it was evident through observation that during the classes, peer discussions had better buy-in, better understanding, better outcomes. I am a former Saline High School math teacher, and I saw this when I put my students in groups, higher engagement, better understanding. However, in my classroom, students in peer discussions had differences than what was going on here, in that I was teaching math, and that content's doesn't really change. I had to complete over 80 credit hours to receive an accreditation to teach math, even though I was already an engineer. So it's important as teachers that we have highly educated people teaching our children. In my case, nobody could really argue there was another way to do the Pythagorean theorem. There's just one way. So I would love for my students to have been out and about after class talking about the Pythagorean theorem. But I didn't really have to worry that they were going to be given extra information or other information. And that's really where my concern lies, is that if we're going to try to get our peers talking to each other, maybe peer educators isn't really the best way. Because outside the classroom, when they get contacted by students, they don't have to follow the rules. They don't have to not talk about whatever these topics are. And I think that when you have a named peer educator who gets approached by a student, the student thinks that their, whatever they say is approved by the teachers and parents. But if it's said outside the actual 1 or 2 day classroom, we don't have any idea what they're saying. And we're giving them sort of authority that students might not understand is really there. So that's why I don't think we should have the Planned Parenthood peer educators. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Sounds good.
I rise in opposition to the LGBTQ plus presentation section of the content comparison document. I also rise in opposition to Planned Parenthood. However, I would say each person, by virtue of their human dignity, is owed respect, compassion, and love as a unique and unrepeatable individual with gifts to bring to our society, with intrinsic value simply by being. I believe every parent, concerned citizen, educator, and advocate could agree with that. However, this implies that we owe the children true and accurate information backed by the best possible science and modern knowledge. I submit that the curriculum provided by Planned Parenthood on this topic does not provide that. First, I want to highlight the APA DSM-5 statement that a majority of persons with gender dysphoria grow out of it after passing through puberty. The very act of concentrating on this and emphasizing, encouraging, and normalizing it can actually be responsible for making the condition permanent, leading to worse mental and physical health outcomes, including suicide later in life. Secondly, I wish for you to consider the genderbread person as an example of the unsubstantiated theory being proposed as accurate information. This conceptual construct is used to systemize the gender identity political movement rather than to
30
teach
seconds.
human biology or even psychology, and certainly not neurology. This was started back in the 1950s. If you want to use science, which you should, let's update it and use current thinking, current science, validated science, peer-reviewed science. And my question to the council is this: will you please investigate the short list of published references that are included in Miriam Grossman's book, You're Teaching My Child What? Chapter 7. Thank you.
Thank you. Lori Schaefer.
I'd like to read several student testimonials from students who have received Planned Parenthood's comprehensive sex education instruction in another district. These are the students' words. I feel like they are encouraging me to have sex. The presenter said, "Raise your hand if you really think most kids in high school aren't having sex." When the presenter would ask us where we can get services for abortions, treatment for STDs, and supplies for sexual activity, each time she had us all chant Planned Parenthood. The presenter said that when a condom needs to be put on, girls should ask the guy if she can do it because we all know how much boys like us to touch their penis. When the teacher said that when some kids have sex for the first time, it will be heterosexual. For others, it will be homosexual. So everyone should be thinking about that. Is this how we want our children to feel after receiving district-approved sex education? I would encourage the committee to seek out service providers, do a wider search, and find a group that will focus on real education and not generating future customers for Planned Parenthood. Thank you.
Next we have Linda Kujira. Actually, I feel like this question's been asked before, but.
Can we have the mic over? Do we have a comment?
Sure, certainly.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm a senior at Washington International High School, the school Ricky was talking about earlier.
This is my second year in the program, and I'm not sure where exactly those statements were taken from, but I know that personally I've taught in countless amount of classrooms. I can't even give you a number right now. It happens all the time, but the only time I really say Planned Parenthood is when I introduce myself and say, "Hi, my name is Sarah, and I'm a peer educator from Planned Parenthood," and then I go on with the presentation. I never really talk about Planned Parenthood other than that. I never have kids chant anything. In fact, I don't even force kids to participate in anything they don't want to participate in. Along with that, I know that I am here right now because I care about education, and that is much more priority to me than Planned Parenthood. If it meant Planned Parenthood being defunded, completely gone, abortion's illegal, but kids got proper education, I would say yes, go for it. So I think that a big issue is that everyone here is attacking Planned Parenthood, and they're here to work to get rid of Planned Parenthood, whereas I know most of us are here because we are here for education, we're here for students, and I think that this meeting would be a lot more productive if we actually talked about the new changes to the program and sex education instead of talking about the faults of Planned Parenthood, especially because that is rarely ever talked about in the classrooms when we are presenting. Thank you.
I wanted to, first of all, thank the committee for all their service to our community. I have been a Saline resident for 10 years, and I have children age 13 through 10 months, and my oldest will be in high school next year, and I'm a very concerned parent, concerned about proposed curriculum. Our kids look to us and their teachers for guidance and support, and when we invite Planned Parenthood to teach our kids, we're telling our kids that Planned Parenthood is a good resource for them to go to for answers and support. And this isn't the case for me. I've looked at their website, Resources for Youth, and it's not what I want for my kids or my kids' friends to be exposed to. Planned Parenthood encourages unhealthy sexual relationships and sexual behavior at a young age. It does not make sense to have them teach our kids about this important topic. Even if our teachers are not discussing abortion in the classroom, they are still opening the door to it and all other Planned Parenthood services by connecting them to Planned Parenthood. The truth is that Planned Parenthood is in the business of abortions, and as stated before, 94% of Planned Parenthood pregnancy services, which include their prenatal care and their adoption referrals, are actually, 94% is actually abortions. And since 2009, Planned Parenthood cancer prevention and screening services have dropped by 50%. So this shows where their priorities are. Planned Parenthood is a business I do not trust, and I do not want our kids to be hurt and confused by what they teach. And opting out does not keep this info from our kids. They will still get it through their peers, who will introduce them to the website, the apps, all the other resources that Planned Parenthood offers will still be there for our kids. And yeah, my other question was already answered, or as far as were there other curricula that have been explored?
Okay.
Thank you. My concern actually is also with the Planned Parenthood connection, because it's all well and good to say, to have some testimonies that things were fine, but the truth is, if you have an organization with a chance that there would be problems, why would you partner with it? I heard a talk by a woman, she's been giving this talk for 25 years, after she regretted what she did. Her name's Carol Everett. She was determined to make $1 million a day, she said, by the money she got for bringing in girls for abortion. Their strategy was to get into the schools to teach sex education, making loss of innocence as early as possible and promoting sexual activity. She said they knew that the girls would make mistakes with birth control and condoms would fail. This gave the students their hotline number. When the calls came in, they steered them to the abortion. All of this was done to promote the abortion business of a set of clinics. This was not particularly Planned Parenthood, but she said it was very deliberate. And I find it striking the similarities between concerns that people have about Planned Parenthood and the information that there is. I have heard testimonies by 3 Planned Parenthood former workers who said they had quotas to get a certain number of abortions. One of them even said they had a pizza party incentive. In 2013, Planned Parenthood performed 174 abortions for every 1 adoption referral and has now mandated that every affiliate performs abortions. So once again, even if you don't discuss abortion, just the partnership is problematic and giving Planned Parenthood as a resource to the kids. Abortion is a big part of their worldview. It will affect their other activities. You can't just deny it. You can't just say, oh, just because somebody, terrorists aren't going to discuss whatever, please. Those are my concerns.
Katie Rittenhouse. Do you want to come up, or I'll come back to you? Okay.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity for allowing us to speak. A lot of my concerns were addressed as well. One being that, why haven't we looked at other programs available? It feels a little conflict of interest. This is a very emotional topic, and that is my concern. I'm a Saline parent, but I've also been a school nurse. I've worked in schools over 20 years, and I see the emotional, psychological, mental effects of this on students regularly. We know adolescents' brains are developing, and they're not fully developed until they're in their mid-20s. And that is why we need to help provide those supports needed. It's such a, and it seems to me that Planned Parenthood, I went on their site, I looked at some of the videos, and I mean, Planned Parenthood's been around, it's been in the schools, and it seems that they're selling sex, they're promoting this, they're desensitizing this, they're isolating it from the emotional, mental aspect that these kids are starting to try to figure out who they are, and I deal with them in the schools, the scars, because of the risk behavior that they just cannot handle. They feel like this is normalized. They've been pressured to just trying this, and they're left with these scars that they will have to deal with the rest of their life. And I feel like in the schools we owe it to them. I'm concerned with the suicide rate too, and the risk behaviors, and then it brings in the alcohol, and our kids deserve better. We deserve this. Can we look at other programs out there with one that is not so, polarized? Thank you.
You want to come up? Oh, there's a microphone up there.
Hi, I'm Jeff Rittenhouse. I'm Katie's husband. I kind of wish he would have shuffled the cards because we have similar things we're going to cover. I actually wanted to go right to Planned Parenthood's site and just look at some of these videos because we were handed packets that just showed bullet points of the changes or proposed changes to the curriculum. But that's not, it doesn't say anything about what our kids are going to see or what the experience is going to be like. And I had the same concern about some of the videos. I think they're well-meaning in the sense that they want to teach kids about protected sex. But looking at the videos, I came to the conclusion that they're really promoting sex among our youth. The videos are very professionally done. Kids are in various romantic situations, sometimes half-dressed. I mean, you could even say they are calculated to be, what's the word I want? Calculated to be arousing to the kids, the high school kids. So to kind of get an interest in sex going. It was also ironic to me, we are an abstinence-based program, I believe, which doesn't mean abstinence only, but abstinence-based. In the Planned Parenthood videos, there was only one reason for abstinence, and that was the absence of a condom or the absence of a barrier. So that was the only reason for abstaining that I could see in these presentations to the kids. You know, nothing else was gone into. So again, I think Planned Parenthood only pays lip service to the idea of real abstinence, and it glamorizes sexual activity, which will continue to put our youth at risk. I do believe there are out there other abstinence-based programs that could meet the current needs, and we really need to look into this, not just one highly controversial company that does surround us, but this is our school district. We have our children here, and we need to make that decision for ourselves. Thank you.
Steve, I need to address that really quick. I have no idea what videos you're referring to, but they're not a part of the proposed curriculum in any way. We don't show any videos in the content that we propose.
It's part of the sex ed curriculum. So I have the website, and I can give it to you later if you want to see it.
Hi, my name is Catherine. I'm a peer educator. And I just want to address that, I don't know where you went. I just want to let you know that when we are giving our contraception, presentation, we start out, we talk about, we put them all up on the board and we say hormonal methods and we say barrier methods. But the first thing that we say is that the only 100% effective method of birth control is abstinence. I would also like to say that this whole thing is not about my view on abortion or my view on Planned Parenthood, and nor should it be about your views on abortion or Planned Parenthood. What it's about is the safety of your children as they grow older and as they become adults. We know that the average age for a teenager to start having sex, or for any person to start having sex, is 17 years old. And that's just a fact. That's not arguable. That's not my values. That's a fact. And so we aren't here to say, this is what you need to do. You need to have sex, or because the average is this age, you have to have sex at this age. And nor are we encouraging that. We're here to say that when you have sex, when you decide, or you and your parents decide, or when your values equal the time that you can have sex, this is how you're supposed to do it, safely, not supposed to do it, but safely, and to stay away from STDs and anything else that can happen.
Thank you.
Good evening. I actually do not have children in the Saline school system. I am a taxpayer, so I am concerned about where my money is going. And I am concerned about the students who are in the Saline school system. I do have questions about the peer education piece of the curriculum. I think some of them have been answered, so excuse me if I repeat questions that have been answered. One question I had was, how are peer educators selected? Will peer educators be compensated, for example, receive a stipend, or be compensated in some way by Planned Parenthood? Will the peer educators, do they have to have parental permission to be involved in this program? Another question, what guarantee can you make that when peer educators are giving their presentation, that the certified health educator who's also in the room, would he or she be there to correct any mistaken information that is given? And what if there's more than one group running at a time? Are there multiple adults who would be able to be in those different rooms? Another question would be, what will the consequences be for a peer educator who gives improper information? Will the teacher be prepared to intervene or correct the peer educators if necessary? And another question, if there were a substitute teacher in the room.
30 seconds.
Okay, if there were a substitute teacher in the room for the day when the peer educators are presenting, would there be a plan in place to cancel the peer presentations, or would they continue as such?
Yeah. Let me start with the last one. So the answer is no. If there was a sub for whatever reason, if the teacher got sick halfway through, or if their child experienced an emergency, we would need to reschedule. The law says that we need to have a certified health teacher in the room at all times, and so Natalie would be that person for Celine, just like any teacher, any health teacher, any, Whitney's here too. Oh man, sorry. Anyways, so that's that. The peer ed interviews and selection all happens at the beginning of the school year, and anyone who's interested in applying can apply to the program. We accept applications for anyone who is in 9th, 10th, or 11th grade in a high school somewhere in the area that's able to get to our meeting location. And so everyone that submits an application gets an interview, depending on how many people graduated the year before, kind of determines how many slots might be open in the group. And then we kind of deliberate the criteria based on however the interview goes after that person applies. We do have parental permission, not per se in that we have a form that says, can your child do this program? But there's a number of other very specific paperwork that we fill out, ranging from the HIPAA law that doctors follow in terms of confidentiality, to a medical form in case there was an emergency. So parents do sign a number of forms that certify their child's involvement. And yeah, like I said, we would never present in a classroom if there is a sub present, because I don't know if you know this, but subs don't necessarily have to be a health teacher for a health class. They can be any old person who the district decides to hire. So we wouldn't operate in that capacity because the law says you have to have a certified health teacher there.
Compensation.
Did we answer all the questions? Yeah, it's a really good question.
Compensation.
Peer educators, depending on their attendance throughout the school year, are given a small compensation for travel because they're coming into our meeting location. Like we have teams who are driving 30 minutes from Milan every Wednesday when we meet. But again, not everyone even receives that based on the criteria that we've set out for the meetings that they have to attend.
Are you compensated?
I'm a staff person in Planned Parenthood.
Okay, let's keep this. All right, Stephen Gillespie.
Hello everybody, thanks for letting me speak. I'm a neuroscientist by training. I work as a research scientist in the neurology department close by. I'm also a concerned father of 5 children who will later be in the school district. I have spent the last 4 years, much of my personal time, researching the literature on LGBTQ issues, especially because I have a sister who's been a lesbian for 25 years, who I speak to frequently. And I have observed throughout my research that the information taught and advocated by Planned Parenthood is actually not representative of the current research on these issues. Some of this research can share with you later. My understanding for putting in the LGBTQ new curriculum is to help increase understanding and improve mental health, all the things. And that's an excellent thing I think we absolutely need to focus on. But Planned Parenthood has a one-sided advocacy approach, which will incite greater conflict and which will thus fail to accomplish our goal. Let me give 2 examples. One of them is the genderbread, which is already mentioned. This is a descriptive kind of social science. There's no neuroscience being presented along with this. This is confusing and divides the class into those who agree and those who do not. If we actually taught the science, we would then have a basis to understand each other, to understand why these things are going on. That would teach us the why. And in this case, teaching the science would actually be easier because it teaches us why we can understand each other. That would diffuse conflict, but that's not how it's set up currently. Secondly, the manner in which the health disparities are taught is also not going to accomplish our goal. They've set up a situation whereby anybody who disagrees with Planned Parenthood, the ideology taught is labeled a hater or homophobic. If we instead taught the biology and had a basic understanding first of each other, and we would not have to threaten any worldview, we wouldn't threaten any culture or identity, and then we could discuss these disparities in actually a positive, cooperative atmosphere. So I'm happy to support the teachers. I agree with the comments made earlier. I think if we look at the resources in our community, we could develop our own program if we want to. There's no need to go to a secondary source.
Okay. We are going to take one more question tonight. And the purpose of having multiple forums is so we can have a chance to get to all of the questions and discussions. So what we'll end up doing is, everybody who didn't get a chance to speak that still wants to at the next one, we'll put all the cards in order, and we'll start with that the next time. At the same time, I'm going to leave these cards with Betty Rosaliccia, because if you prefer, you can ask a question by way of the survey, and if you prefer that way, that's fine too, and then you might not want to ask it the next time. But we're going to assume you do, and we're going to keep the question cards in order, and then we're going to start that way on the 30th. And after Joanna, Bruno, you're going to go next, then be last, then I'll close, and then I'm going to meet with the advisory council, and we're going to debrief tonight's event, and then we're going to go open the survey up, and we want all of you to take it, and then we will be reconvening again for the May 30th meeting. So, Joanna? John?
In light of the emphasis we heard in the introduction, I totally agree. It is really important to reduce sexual assault. We want to promote healthy relationships. Thank you very much for your passion for doing that. But in light of that, I want to share with you an activity that's offered in the Planned Parenthood peer curriculum. This, I want to note, is not an activity that is part of this curriculum. However, it is an activity that can be used in training peer-to-peer educators. It states that in the copy of the curriculum that I have here. And this activity, youth have to either publicly agree or disagree to a series of statements, and the instructor is supposed to stress to the students that these are statements that do not have a right or wrong answer. So there's a just value judgments. It's fine if you believe either way. So with that in mind, please listen carefully to these statements. I think it is fine to give someone money or a gift for sex. No right or wrong answer. I think it is fine to accept money for having sex if you need the money. No right or wrong answer. I think that a real man takes risks and is sexually aggressive. No right or wrong answer. Pressuring someone to have sex against his or her will, even if you don't use physical force, is more or less the same as rape. Again, that's Planned Parenthood is saying there is no right or wrong answer to these questions. That's disturbing to me. I do not want students to think that it is fine to give someone money or a gift for sex, or to receive money or gift for sex, because that's prostitution and it's illegal. And I don't want people to think that pressuring someone to have sex against his or her will may or may not be rape, depending on how you look at it, because that is rape and those things are illegal. So again, I don't believe that a curriculum that uses this, even if this particular module is not being delivered to our students, I don't believe that an organization that puts together a curriculum like this can really stand up and say, we're really trying to reduce these things, we're trying to give good information to students about these things. Thank you very much.
Well, everyone, do you want to provide that now?
I just wonder what the source is on that, because I've never heard of that in my 14 years.
This is a copy of the curriculum. I mean, it's from the Planned Parenthood Global. Do I have another copy?
The last word is spoken.
Sure.
Follow the rules.
Response and then
Follow the rules.
Hi, I'm Sabina. I'm 16 years old and I'm a peer ed. I just want to remind everyone here that being 16 years old, I am a child, along with all of the other peer eds. We're all children. And I think a big part of the reason we're here is because we care about children and we want what's best for them. And I think a lot of the words that have been said or passed have been pretty negatively aimed at us, these children. And whether that was intentional or not, I do personally feel that way. And I do want to clarify a few things, because especially on that topic of sexual assault, which is something that I take very, very seriously, and I'm sorry, like, I'm getting emotional, but that is never, ever, ever something that any of us would ever condone. And that is never something that we are taught or something that we teach to anyone else. And sorry, I just want everyone to remember that we are all children, and we just want what's best for our peers, like deeply from our hearts. That's what we care about. So thank you.
First off, I want to thank all of you. it is really apparent by such a big turnout that people really care about this issue. And even though we heard a lot of countering viewpoints tonight, it is impressive that we're getting together to talk about this and discuss this as a community. That's very important that we do that. So the next steps are, and I apologize because I know some people probably didn't get the agenda that has that little link on it. So if you can share with each other, basically it's this GOO, that's a shortener. So you simply put it into your browser and then the survey will come up. And we really want everybody to take it. That's important information back to all of us. In addition, we'd encourage you to consider being on the on our council. So there are some applications back there. Feel free to drop one to Betty, or you can drop it directly to Liberty or send it directly to the superintendent. With that said, I thank all of you for coming, and we'll be at the next one from 8:30 at the same time. Thank you.